Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are ready to get back to some contracts. Now I've gone through and accepted a bunch of these, but I wanted to double check here. This is just a Minmus flyby. Okay, we're probably not going to do that right now. That's absolutely fine. So we're just going to hop over here real quick. We currently have 7 accepted, and that includes these that are still here. Now, I want to point out that it was mentioned, and I'm sorry I don't have it pulled up right now. I probably should have kept that up. But it was mentioned by a commenter that I would like to shout out at this moment, but I'm sorry I don't know your name, that a polar geostationary orbit isn't possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strike this, and we're going to call this a polar orbit at geostationary altitude. Or I guess this would be geostationary, since it's Kerbin. But something along this line would be within the spirit without... Because a polar geostationary orbit isn't possible, right? Because the planet doesn't spin in that direction. So that's fine. So we're going to have to modify this a little bit. And honestly, I think we should probably go for this, like, right now. We do have this expiration in year 1, day 184. And when is it right now? It's year 1, day 60. So we've got some time, for sure. And that's absolutely okay. I would like to work on that. I should probably figure out what the altitude is of geostationary orbit. I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I have the information pulled up on the wiki here. I also pulled up the person who commented that. That was Akira Nara, so thank you very much for pointing out that that is not possible. According to the wiki, the orbital altitude that we need to be at is 2,863,334.06 meters. That's very specific, and we'll probably target, ballpark of that. So I think one thing that I would like to do here while we are working on this is going to be slightly easier to do now because we can't do a polar geostationary. So I'm going to bump this down in difficulty to a medium because we're not quite getting exactly what we wanted. But we're still going to get the under 6 months here, so that's fine. And we get some extra science out of it too. I think that would have to be 200 science rather than 198, but that's fine. So let's hop in here and get this designed. So this is a satellite, an unmanned craft with a power source and antenna. Easy enough. I would put a telescope on here if we had it unlocked, but we're just going to use a Prototyne. Do we want the Hex or the Octo? I think the Hex is the higher level one, right? I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. Stability assist, and the Hex can do prograde and retrograde hold. So yeah, we're going to use the Hex, and that's going to be very, very simple. We're going to have some comms on here. I am going to put on like a high gain antenna, I think. Just for purposes of communication. Now, I don't like the rotation of this Hex. I'm going to rotate it like that so that we're flat bottomed instead of pointy bottomed. There we go. So we can attach this like so. And then we're going to put on a very, very basic craft here. We're going to need to be able to generate power. We've got a built-in reaction wheel, so that should be okay. I'm going to put in a battery here. So just a Z200. As far as our power generation goes, we are going to use photovoltaic panels since, of course, we can't do anything else. I can put one in here to help offset our weight, and I'm going to do like one in each of these, although it's potentially slightly awkward if we end up facing the wrong way. That's what the battery is for. So that should be reasonably fine. And this will be contained within a fairing, for sure. I do want to put in a fuel tank here. What size are we on here? Yeah, we're on the small size. So that's okay. We can go with like Oscar C liquid fuel tank. Seems okay. And we could even put in a singular photovoltaic panel out here, like that, to deal with that. And it has some weight offset issues, I'm sure. But I want a relay antenna on here, so that would be fine. We're going to repurpose this as a communications satellite once we're done with the contract. So that's the overall idea there. As far as our engine goes, we would definitely be running the Spark. That has gimbaling, correct? Correct. So something like this would be all that we need. Double checking the contract here. The contract says unmanned craft with a power source and an antenna. We've got both of those. So then I want to note down polar orbit 2,863,334.06 meters. We're going to target very close to that, but we may not get exactly that. Okay. So now we're going to put in a decoupler here. This is our spacecraft, easy enough. And we're going to call this the Caleb KA-88 Santa Spy Satellite. Perfect. Okay, so with that in there, we're going to grab our TD-06, and from here, we probably want to do a fuel tank adapter. That's probably too big, I think. That's definitely too big. Do we have the right size available? Definitely not that one. This goes up to that size there. I believe this is a 2.5 meter size. Actually, it's not. It's the Kerbin? Or Mark 3, maybe? Kerbin. Okay, sure. So, yeah, this is the wrong size here. We want to take this from the Oscar C size, which is this guy here. But we want to take that up to the 1.25 meter. We don't need to do a 2.5 meter here for sure. I don't think we have a fuel adapter that is the correct size. I could be wrong about that. Yeah, these are the only options we have. I don't think we have it unlocked. So we're probably going to have to do something a little bit more sad. This is to the FLA-5. Yeah, I think this is the right size. So I would want to have... This would probably even be overkill. But something kind of like this. I want to put in an Oscar C hemispherical fuel tank up here. Like that, just to make this look a little bit better. Cool. So something along the lines of this. This guy we could have be white like so, and then we would have this, of course, be powered by a Terrier. This would be our overkill stage. That's what that stage is. That is our overkill stage. We almost certainly don't require it, but we would then put in a TD-12 decoupler, and then we're going to lift this off. I don't think we need to go to a 2.5 meter, like I said. So we're going to go for a pair of T-800s. This should be a fairly light vehicle. Is that basically all we need? Something along the lines of this. Yeah, I don't like the boat tail. I wish that we could get rid of that orange highlight, but it is what it is. So something like this, we should probably, for the purposes of weight balancing, as well as for the purposes of contracts, if we could accept them, we would probably end up putting in a thermometer over here. And I'm going to do that just for weight balancing purposes. Now, I do want to put in a fairing here. So that will be important. We will put in a 1.25 meter fairing. And this doesn't need to be all that much of a fairing. So it would just be something kind of like that. Nice and compact. And then beyond that, we would put in, I mean, it's not straight up and down. It probably could be, couldn't it? Looking at how much this is actually sticking out, it probably could be straight up and down. Apparently the game doesn't like that, probably because of this adapter here. What if we just ditched the adapter and used the fairing as the adapter? Yeah, that does the trick. Cool. So we can do a fairing kind of like this. I like that better. Wonderful. And it's definitely a gold fairing. That looks kind of weird, actually. I don't know. It kind of looks like a bullet now. I kind of like it, though. So we're going to put in our... Tail fins are going to be overkill here, right? I'm pretty sure tail fins are overkill here. But we could put them in. Let's take a look at our center of mass and aerodynamic overlay. Yeah, they're like giga overkill. So I think Delta Deluxe winglets will probably be better. They're still pretty overkill. We'll put them in like here-ish. No, I prefer the look of them here, even if that makes it slightly awkward to control. It should be fine, right? It should definitely be fine. So how's our thrust to weight looking? 1.19, a little slow off the pad. Okay, so we've got our fairing and decoupler here. That's definitely not where we want those. This will be dropped down to here. This is going to happen when this detaches. And this would happen here, and the fairing would be manually deployed. So it would be something like this. Now, this is definitely a little bit anemic on the first stage. So we may have to take this up a little bit higher in terms of its power level. And how do we want to do that? Well, one quick question here. What is our burn time? About 2 minutes? If we figure that this would be going away about here... I mean, we would have the thrust to wait. This should be fine, I think. But this is definitely a weak stage. We could use SRBs. Like, relatively small SRBs to boost up the power level of this stage. I mean, look how cheap this is. We're doing fine on that front. So I think that's okay. Thumpers are probably wildly overkill. And they're not attached to the right part there. Something like that. There we go. And then we drop those down and then move this up. So it'd end up being something kind of like this. How overkill are those thumpers? 1.71. Okay, yeah, they're super overkill. So I don't think we need the thumpers. We could go for even like hammers here, probably. Pollux. Yeah, that's way too much. All of these are way too much. Honestly, I really do think that just hammers would do the trick. The goal here is to just get us some speed off the pad. So we would then move these to be down over here. That also moves our center of mass down relatively nicely. And then we'd drop this down to be about here. We could certainly put on hemispherical fuel tanks. These are too big. It is, I think, this size? Yes. And then run that fuel, or actually just turn on the fuel crossfeed. But I would rather use a fuel line to pull directly and exclusively from these tanks. Because when we drop this, we want to know for a fact that this is used up. So we want to use this fuel first. So something along the lines of this. And that puts us at 2.58 thrust to weight. Yeah. It's a lot. We're going to thrust limit this down quite a bit. Not that far. About 50%. Yeah, that's about right. So about 50% here, giving us 44 seconds of burn here. And then beyond that, we'll have 80 seconds of burn here. That seems reasonable. Now, we do want some struts in here, like so. This is definitely overbuilt. There's no doubt about that. We probably could have gotten away with dropping this stage and just having this craft be delivered into orbit with this. But honestly, look at how cheap this is. Under 13,000. It sounds good to me. Let's put this out on the pad. I don't think we're forgetting anything. I just want to go through the staging real quick here. Yes. 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 Looks good. Okay, out on the pad we go. We're going to be going into a polar orbit, and this is a very, very high orbit. There's no doubt about that. But it should be absolutely okay. So we're targeting about 2.8 million for our apoapsis. That's a big ol' burn. That is a big ol' burn. Cool. SAS on. Throttle up. I instantly throttled down. Cool. And off we go. So we're going to need to use the maneuver mode here. That looks fine. And we'll burn out these SRBs soon enough. Now remember, we need to be going northwards, and that just happens to be right over here. Cool. So we're heading into a polar orbit. And over we head. Just trying to hold our attitude here while also gravity turning. We're trying to roll a little bit here. This thing is very stable, which is about what I expected. Ooh, that was a big, big roll. Okay, we're going to hold here, drop our SRBs, and we're just going to push upwards for a while. Our apoapsis is 27 kilometers right now. I want to continue to push up. Let's just block prograde for the time being. I want to pull us up a little bit. We are not quite on the attitude that I want to be at. Okay, somewhere a little bit closer to here. Beautiful. 52 kilometers is our current apoapsis. That, of course, needs to get a lot higher. And look at all this delta V. Like I said, overbuilt. But overbuilt is absolutely the way to go. Our apoapsis is now in space, so we're just heading right on over to the horizon here. We want to get purely horizontal speed. It doesn't really like sitting on the horizon, but we can force it. There we go. And we're just going to continue to burn here for a good long time. We need a very high apoapsis. That said, once this burns out, we are going to coast until we're in space. Okay. There we go. We can ditch our fairing as well, which we will definitely do. But we're just going to coast for the time being. And we can definitely see our prograde marker isn't exactly where we want it to be. But that's fine. We have a lot of burn ahead of us. We're now in space. We're going to extend our antenna. Fantastic. And let's commence the burn. Luckily, our offset thrust isn't too bad. It might be once we get to this engine. We'll see. But we need to accelerate a lot. I want to pull us downward this direction a bit, because we can see we're pretty far off of the 360-degree marker right now. So that's okay. And we're just pushing this apoapsis right on up. Remember, this is exponential, so we are going to get quite a lot of progress quite quickly once we really start to get progress here. 300 kilometers. For now, we're targeting 2.8 million. That is our current goal. We're entering orbital mode right now, which is fine. We're about to hit 1 million. Beautiful. 1.4, that's halfway. 2.4, and that's 2.9. We actually overshot slightly, so I'm going to back us off. I want to hit 2.863 is our target speed here. So we're going to back off and bring this down just a hair. Little bit more. Cool. That's very, very close there. We're like 300 meters off. I'm going to call that good enough. And it's a decent polar orbit. So we're going to add a maneuver here, of course, and look to circularize that. Beautiful. Something like this. It's a little bit overshot, it looks like. We need to change our timing here, probably. Indeed. Cool. So now we want to get our apoapsis down. Actually, our periapsis up. It's because of our timing being off. Right. There we go. So something a bit more along the lines of this. We need to change our timing to be about here. Okay. And we want to circularize this. We're probably going to have to make a couple of adjustments. So I think we'll call this good enough, and then we'll make adjustments once we're here. We're not exactly where we want this to be, and that's fine. Cool. So let's position for this. And off we go. We're going to be on stability assist for right now. And we will commence this burn in about 1 minute. Beautiful. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. We definitely wiggle around a bit with our thrust on. That's our thrust vectoring compensating for our offset thrust. It's not shocking. But like I said, this is the overkill stage. No doubt about that. Okay, let's get this last little bit in here. That's probably good enough. 0.4 meters per second off. Okay, so now we're going to be arriving at the apoapsis first. So once we arrive here, I want to move this guy down, or actually up a little bit. We need to be 2863, allegedly 334. I don't know if that's really where we're going to target. It's very, very precise if we do. We'll try it, and we'll see how that goes. 863, 381. That's really, really close. 326, 354. Okay, we'll call this good enough, and we'll align for that burn. That's going to be a 0.1 second burn. 1.2 meters per second. I'm going to thrust limit this down to 0.5%. Now it's an 8-second burn. Okay, cool. So let's warp to that. Excellent. It always feels so weird to be in polar orbits. We'll continue to warp here for a couple of seconds. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. Holding attitude here. Just getting that last little bit of thrust done. How are we looking? 382, 122. Okay, I'm going to lock to prograde here, and we're just going to bring that right on up. 363, we're aiming for 363, 334. Or 863, rather. 334. Okay. We're very, very close here, and we'll see how close we can get. Little bit more. 200 and 318, 322. 328, 330, 334. Bam. Right there. Okay, so now, of course, we need to adjust our apoapsis without really adjusting our periapsis too much. That's going to be kind of spicy. We're going to put this in here. We need to take this down a little bit. So we want to have this open and not this one. Okay, so 28... It's a very, very minute change, right? So 2863. And then we'll fine-tune that one in once we get there. 28. That's very, very close there. We'll call that good enough. Cool. And this is going to be a 1 meter per second burn. Around we go. We've got so much overkill here. It's insane. But we will prepare for this. This will be a very good comm satellite for us, too. Polar orbits are always useful for that. So that'll be great. Please don't go to prograde. Go to retrograde. Thank you very much. Okay. So we know that we want to burn this shortly. Three, 2, 1, and 0. Okay. Bringing it on down. How's that? Still 2863, 334. And 2863, 724. So we need to keep burning this down a little bit. And yes, this is going to change a little. Boom. We'll call that good enough. That is within the, 12 meters on the apoapsis. And I think 12 meters on the periapsis as well. So we're 12 meters off here. We could technically change that by twisting our orbit with a radial burn. I mean, we could try it. This is really, really close, though. And which radial burn do we need? This one? And we're technically not at exactly the right time for it either. This is the direction that we need to go. So something like this, and then a retrograde burn at this periapsis would do the trick. Let's actually lock to retrograde. We're incredibly close here to getting this bang on. Technically, there's that 0.06 in there, but we're not going to bother about that. We're just going to warp over to the periapsis now, and we have to go all the way around, but that's fine. We should arrive there fairly soon. Good old time warp. and a very, very minute retrograde burn once we get up over here. Very, very small. 3 meters is what we need. So time to periapsis is, we're technically just past it. Overshot. Okay, that is very, very sensitive. We can't get this thrust limited any further down. We could stage this. Okay. I'm going to call that good enough. That's within 1 meter of the apoapsis, and the periapsis is correct. So we'll call that good enough. There is no stationary orbit, of course, over the poles. So that is absolutely fine. We are at the stationary altitude, almost exactly. And we do pass over the poles. It's a polar orbit. So that looks good to me. So what do we get paid for this? Well, we brought it down to a medium. So that means that we get paid... I have completely forgotten my paying scheme. Okay, let me hop over to the video description of the last video. It should say in there, right? 50,000 is what we get paid for this for a medium. Because remember, we downgraded it to a medium difficulty contract because we are no longer able to get the actual geostationary part of it. But we also get an extra 170k bonus because we got it within the time limit. So that puts us at 220k. So we can add in 200, and then this would go up to... Okay, I have miscounted this. We're going to call that close enough. I for some reason was thinking that this was the... No, it's not. I miscounted this. That's probably close enough. I don't know where we started. I was looking at this number. It should be somewhere around here. If it's a little lower, that's fine. However, we also know that we get some science out of this. 198 according to the contract. But we don't have the ability to do 198. I'm going to round it to 200. There we go. Cool. So there is that contract complete. It's been a bit since we've done a viewer contract, but there we go. And that was a fun one. I liked it. So good job on that one, Caleb K88. It is, at this point, about time to put a cut in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, let me just move this over to the completed column. There we go. Next episode, we're going to continue to hammer out some of these viewer contracts. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, James, Shadow Wolf, and Lohan80, Rogue Corvid, Kentogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Anna the Elephant, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.